Chapter 3. Fractures of Faith. Part 1. A flower in bloom. Eliska beneath the temple of crystal hymns. The stone bled light. Saelion Raga stood alone in the echoing sanctum beneath Eliska's surface, surrounded by the bodies of the 5 most loyal Astartes he had ever known. The scent of scorched ceramite mingled with ash, blood, and something sweeter like perfume. At the center of the chamber bloomed the orchid, a towering, alien blossom of amethyst crystal and coiling silver vines, pulsing softly with unnatural life. The battle was over, the bloodshed done. Librarian Vaerel's broken body lay face down among the fallen, twitching no longer. Saelion's breaths came sharp and uneven, each one hitching with the weight of what had just happened. His armor was shattered in places, gory from wounds he had suffered at the hands of Vaerel. He had killed Vaerel, not by choice, not without pain, but by necessity. The orchid, Slaanesh, had shown him what the galaxy could be, and Vaerel, in his blind loyalty, had tried to drag them all back into darkness. And so, Saelion knelt, head bowed before the bloom, and it answered him. The vision unveiled. He did not dream. He awoke, in a world that could not exist, a realm of endless sky-draped gardens and choral winds, filled with color that defied names and light that wrapped around the soul like warmth. In every direction, harmony, a universe at peace. At his side stood his brothers, the Night Orchids, no longer warriors but heralds of sensation and truth. Each of them shone, their armor evolved into intricate expressions of form and feeling. The galaxy knelt to them, not in fear, but joy. Alien and human, machine and demon all together, liberated. The long war ended, the Imperium, remade. Even the Huntsmen stood among them, free from silence and blood, smiling. And in the center of all, Slaanesh, not a horror, a being of impossible grace, a light so exquisite it could not be looked at directly. You have felt the cage, it whispered. Now see the door. Bring them with you, Saelion. Show them what freedom means. The words rang like symphony, filling every hollow space inside his soul. He nodded slowly. He believed. The orchid's touch. He awoke gasping, covered in sweat. Pain surged, but only for a moment. The orchid shimmered. Vines reached down like slow-moving tendrils of silver light and touched his armor. The wounds vanished. He watched, awestruck, as broken ribs clicked back into place, lacerated muscles knitted together, and shredded armor closed seamlessly over him. Not just restored, but reborn. His warbler now shimmered faintly with an otherworldly glow, its once simple trim edged with elegant silver filigree. Beneath the surface, he felt it vitality, bliss. Thank you, he whispered aloud, his voice hoarse with awe. He touched the floor reverently. His debt was beyond measure, and from this moment forward, he would not run from what had been shown to him. He would walk the path revealed in the vision, with care, with love, with purpose. He would share it with his brothers, and one day, with all. Eliska's surface, a world liberated. High above the catacombs, Eliska burned clean. The final echo of bolt of fire had faded hours ago. The last of the Emperor's children had been purged from the eastern spires and music-blasted slums of the capital. What remained was rubble, flame, and victory. The Huntsmen stood at the edge of the ruined palace square, their white and purple armor scorched with soot and viscera, gold trim gleaming in the wan light of Eliska's dying sun. At their center stood Chapter Master Daemon Titan, helm off, face streaked with ash. His eyes scanned the burning city with hard-earned satisfaction. This world is free, he said at last. About time, came the voice of Gordos Cyanide, the tech marine of the command squad. Unlike most in his order, Gordos kept the majority of his organic body intact. Only his left arm, right eye, and lower spine were visibly cybernetic. His humor remained unaugmented. He kicked the corpse of a sonic aberrant nearby. One more note from these bastards and I'd have started singing arias just to drown it out. Beside him stood Decimus Cole, the chapter champion, towering, quiet, and formidable. He leaned on his relic glaive, Judgment's Edge, surveying the battlefield with grim calm. His right arm was bare, pale and crisscrossed with chapter tattoos, kill markings, oaths, and prayers inked in black, violet, and gold. I thought you liked noise, Cyanide, Cole rumbled. I like controlled noise, Gordos muttered. That stuff down there, that's an insult to acoustics. A short distance away, Radon Bane, their silent sniper, crouched atop a ruined column, helm optic sweeping the streets like a predator hunting echoes. Titan turned toward the horizon. Has anyone heard from Saelion? He asked, voice low. Bane's reply came through Vox. dry and terse. No Vox traffic since the palace breach. His last known signal was near the temple. Cole grunted. Odd for him. Cyanide shrugged. Maybe he's busy finishing off the last cultist with a dramatic speech. Titan frowned, but said nothing. In truth, he trusted Saelion, but even in victory, there was a stillness he didn't like. The wind was shifting. The war was over, but the story wasn't. Chapter 3. Fractures of Faith. Part 2. The Blooming Lie. Elister. Catacombs beneath the Temple of Crystal Hymns. Captain Saelion Raga stood before the orchid. The ancient, alien bloom rose like a monument in the shattered heart of the temple. Petals shimmering in a spectrum of impossible color: violet, rose, opaline hues that shimmered like oil on water. Its scent hung thick in the stagnant air, warm, indulgent, almost maternal, as it pulsed with unspoken life. It offered more than light. It offered a future. In his vision, Saelion had seen a galaxy transformed. No more eternal war. No more grinding obligation to a silent god on a golden throne. Instead, peace through passion. Transcendence through freedom. The Night Orchids would lead this rebirth. Slaanesh, the patron of perfection and excess, would guide them to a future free of stagnation. At his feet lay 5 shattered bodies. They had died in loyalty, in violence, in blood and defiance. The catacombs bore their last screams like scars etched in stone. But now, impossibly, they stirred. Brother Erupts moved first. Just a shift of his hand, then a slow rise of his head. A moment later, Brother Karen gasped as if surfacing from deep water. Vaerel rolled onto one side, armor hissing softly. Thekt groaned, dragging himself upright. Nazarian stood last, gripping a broken column to stabilize himself. Their armor, which had been shattered, torn open, and seared with plasma burns, now appeared whole. Their wounds were gone. Their visors flickered to life. Helms turning toward Saelion. There were no horns, no mutations, no fire-eyed stares. They looked perfect. Too perfect. To Saelion, they were his brothers, but to any watching eye, if one could see beyond the veil, they were not. The warriors known as erupts, Karen, Vaerel, Thekt, and Nazarian were dead. Their souls lost to the warp, extinguished in loyalty and defiance. What rose now were demons of Slaanesh, cloaked in false flesh, wearing the personalities and memories of the fallen. The deception was flawless, orchestrated by the Orchid, a servant of the Prince of Pleasure, a psychic node steeped in illusion and seduction. It had shown Saelion what he wanted to see. Now it offered what he longed to believe. Erust spoke first, his voice warm, familiar. You brought us back, Captain. You opened the path. Karen's tone followed, calm and comforting. We remember the pain, then the voice, and now we're whole. Vaerel took a step forward, his usual gentleness in place. You showed us the truth. We follow it still. Thekt chuckled, inspecting his armor. Better than ever. Nazarian's visor flared. And we are still us, Saelion. Nothing's changed. Saelion backed away a step. Disbelief etched across his face. You died. I saw you fall. Felt it. But you saved us. Erust said gently. We were lost, but you called us back. You saved all of us. Karen added. Still, a flicker of unease danced in Saelion's gut. Something about their voices. Too smooth, too composed. But the memory of the vision, the dream of peace, of meaning wrapped around him like silk. It muffled doubt. It sweetened denial. His voice was quiet. Then bring back Vaerel. The silence was instant. Saelion stepped forward, desperation touching his voice. He was my friend, my brother. If this is real, if you're really here, then bring him back too. Karen looked away. Nazarian's tone was pained. Vaerel's soul didn't return. He resisted. Thekt shook his head. He was torn apart, consumed by the warp's hunger. Some spirits cannot be remade, said Vaerel solemnly. Erust's gaze met Saelion's. He would never have accepted the truth. You spared him a fate worse than death. A pit opened in Saelion's chest. He turned back to the orchid. Its pulsing had changed. No longer gentle, it now throbbed with steady power like a heartbeat in perfect rhythm. He stared into its shimmering center and remembered the vision it gave him. The galaxy reborn in perfection and beauty, free of pain and the endless scream of war. He clenched his fists. I didn't want to kill him, but you had to. Erust replied. And now we must free the others, said Karen. Our brothers still wear chains. Vaerel placed a gauntlet on Saelion's shoulder. It begins with us. The flower gave us life again. Now, we must give the others truth. Saelion stared into Vaerian's visor. A flicker, just a flicker, of something not human flashed in the glass, but he dismissed it. He looked back to the orchid, then to his brothers, then back again. His voice came steady now. Then we return. We free them all. High orbit over Eliska. Strike cruiser the Stalking Moon. Huntsman chapter command deck. The Stalking Moon hung in low orbit like a watchful hawk. Hull still scorched from atmospheric breach. Eliska, now quiet and burning in pockets below, no longer trembled with war. The last of the Emperor's children had been purged from its crust days ago. Inside the command deck, Daemon Titan stood with helmet at his hip, cloak torn and dust-stained. Despite victory, his eyes remained vigilant. Next to him was Decimus Cole, the chapter champion. His bare left arm, covered in sacred tattoos of the Huntsman's sigils, rested against the hilt of his sword. Cole stretched his shoulder. It's strange not hearing their screams anymore. Gordos Cyanide, crouched beside an opened terminal with cables in one hand and a grin on his lips, scoffed. I'll take the silence over their music any day. That racket made my skull feel like a Vox speaker during warp storms. Radon Bane stood silently, visor reflecting the planetary horizon. He'd said nothing in hours. Still no contact from the Night Orchids? Daemon asked. Cyanide shook his head. Last Combe Ping said they were securing some ruins in the equatorial Badlands. They'll be up when they're ready. Daemon nodded. Let them finish. Then we celebrate. This was their victory too. Cole gave a faint smile. Think Saelion's finally warming up to the idea of a hunting lodge on Seraphis? Cyanide laughed. Only if we name it the Orchidarium. Daemon allowed himself a chuckle, then turned his gaze once more to the planet below. Come on, brothers. Let's wait for our kin. None of them knew that deep below, in silence and shadow, the Night Orchids had already begun their bloom. Chapter 3. Fractures of Faith. Part 3. The Petal Falls. Eliska Southern Expanse. The ruins of Eliska lay quiet, the thunder of war now a fading memory. Only the sigh of wind through broken temples remained, stirring ash and debris across the blood-slick stone. Saelion Ragus emerged from the shattered catacombs, the first golden rays of Eliska's sun glinting off his pristine armor. In his arms lay the body of Vaerel, Librarian of the Night Orchids, his face at peace in death. Behind Saelion walked 5 warriors. Brother Erupts, the clear-eyed, silent tactician. Keren, once a fierce, passionate swordsman with a protective heart. Vaerian, darkly clever and ever suspicious. Nazarian, noble and proud. And Thect, a thunderous, loyal brute who had bled for every victory. Their armor, once fractured and scorched in battle, now gleamed. Their movements were sure. Their presence was reassuring. To Saelion, it was a miracle. The Orchid had brought them back. He had believed his brothers lost, torn apart in the underworld of the city, butchered by their brother who would not see a brighter future. But when the light of the warp-infused Orchid bathed their broken bodies, they stirred. They rose whole, silent and reverent. They spoke with the voices of his fallen warriors. They remembered. And so, he did not question it. He could not. To question was to deny the mercy of the divine. The Night Orchid strike cruiser, the Celestial Bloom, orbiting Eliska. The Thunderhawk landed with a smooth roar of venting exhaust in the lower hangar bay of the Night Orchid's strike cruiser. Saelion stepped onto the deck, his stride firm, Vaerel's body still in his arms, held as one would a brother in arms, or a sainted relic. Crew and warriors looked on, first in silence, then with reverence. His surviving squad followed behind, weapons sheathed and expressions unreadable. Their restored armor gleamed beneath the hangar lights. No one dared to question. Soon after, preparations for a full ceremonial funeral began. Vaerel was bathed and anointed in sacred oils. His armor was repainted, polished to obsidian sheen, and laid upon the shrine of thorns, beneath the vault where the Orchid sigil burned brightest. His helm was placed at his feet, force staff across his chest, Aquila clasped in hand, the chamber filled with the aroma of incensed blossoms and oils, laced with the violet perfume of Eliska's soil. Ritualistic, respectful, and final. Saelion stood at the altar and addressed his chapter. In the bowels of Eliska, we were ambushed by a hellbrute, he said, his voice unwavering. Vaerel stood alone to halt its charge. He died on his feet so we could live. It was by his sacrifice we slew the beast. Let his name echo in eternity. The warriors of the Night Orchids struck their fists against their chests in unison. Night shall not forget. Void Funeral Hangar 3A. A corridor had been sealed and sanctified for the burial. The great void gates opened, revealing the glittering stars of Eliska's night sky. Vaerel's sarcophagus hovered on the magnetic rails, wreathed in blossoms of violet and silver, his life honored by the full rites of the chapter. This was the highest honor a Night Orchid could receive, the rite of blooming return, said to usher one's spirit into the garden beyond. The Huntsmen arrived quietly. Chapter Master Damon Titan wore his white and purple plate, its gold trim gleaming. Behind him walked Decimus Cole, the silent champion, standing straight, honoring the fallen. Gordos Cyanide, the sardonic Techmarine, was quiet for once, his stance rigid, his head bowed. Radon Bane, long-barreled sniper rifle slung across his back, stood near the wall, half in shadow. He said nothing. Titan stepped forward. Vaerel stood with us, he said. He gave his life for his brothers. The galaxy is dimmer without him, but his flame will not go out. It burns in all who remain. With a gesture, the void gate hissed open. The sarcophagus drifted into the starfield. Away, toward the eternal dark. Silence, honor, respect. Except for Radon. He had seen things others hadn't. The way Saelion delivered the story, his voice perfectly paced, his face calm. But to Radon, who could calculate wind correction by the twitch of a crow's wing, the subtleties stood out. A momentary tightening of Saelion's jaw, a faint twitch in his left brow when speaking of the Hellbrute. Tiny details, almost imperceptible, but they were there. Radon said nothing, not to Titan, not to Decimus, not even to Cyanide, but the feeling rooted itself deep, quiet and growing, mistrust. Chapter 3. The Blooming Rot. Part 4. Petals and Masks. The quiet bloom corruption of the Night Orchids. The corruption of the Night Orchids came not as a sudden storm but as a gentle drizzle, persistent, quiet, and inescapable. It crept beneath armor, behind oaths, through the fractures left by pride and war. They had stared into the abyss and returned changed. Though they still smiled and spoke the Emperor's name, they did not know they were lost. It began with 5 dead warriors, brought back by sorcery Saelion did not understand. Erupts, Keren, Vaerel, Nazarian, and Thekt had all perished in the catacombs of Eliska. Their bodies were shattered, their lives extinguished, but when the orchid bloomed, they stood again. Saelion believed them saved. He did not see the demons of Slaanesh animating their flesh. He saw only his brothers, praising him for his wisdom, thanking him for their rebirth. And so he listened to them, trusted them, loved them, and through him, the chapter began to change. Brother Erupts became a maestro of madness. He viewed every battle not as a struggle, but as theater, an intricate, sacred performance to delight the eyes of Slaanesh. He choreographed formations like actors on a stage, encouraged dramatic entrances, and treated the cries of the dying as rapturous applause. The battlefield is our stage, he told the young sergeants, voice smooth with sinister flair, and we, my friends, are performers in the grand opera of war. Would you rather dance for a god who sees you, or toil in silence for a corpse? Erupts became the secret guide of the Night Orchid's younger sergeants, gathering them in quiet reflection after engagements. He began asking dangerous questions. What if the Imperium never meant to give us freedom? What if the real enemy is the silence? He never ordered disloyalty. He simply asked. And the questions, once planted, spread like rot. Brother Keren was transformed into a disciple of sensation, but it was sound that enslaved his mind. He began obsessing over how vibrations could twist emotion, break discipline, or instill rapture. On the battlefield, he recorded every scream, every ricochet, every dying gasp. These he mixed into haunting hymns played through his squad's vox links in combat, distorted, hypnotic, and maddeningly beautiful. When not fighting, he engraved his flesh with spontaneous tattoos etching twisted images he glimpsed during battle in a frenzied haze. His skin was a gallery of war-born hallucinations, painted in blood and ink. Sound is the key, he whispered. It bypasses the soul's defenses. It changes truth. Brother Vaerel had become the chapter's Techmarine, but not by tradition, and not with honor. When the original Tech priest, Brother Talvex, refused to kneel before the orchid, Vaerel killed him in cold silence. Then, using the omophagia gland that all Astartes are gifted with, the organ designed to consume the memories of fallen enemies, he devoured Talvex's brain and stole his knowledge. Now, he tended the chapter's machines with an unholy familiarity. The wargear still responded to him, but its machine spirits hissed in discomfort when he came near. His only overt augmentation was a single, heavily modified cybernetic arm etched with fluid circuitry and crawling script. The Mechanicus gave me tools, but I took truth. He would mutter, I am more than their priest. I am the echo of divinity. Brother Nazarian preached smoke like scripture. He began modifying his squad's tactics to rely more heavily on smoke grenades, not just for cover, but to unnerve and confuse. He lingered in the vapors after battle, eyes closed in reverent silence. Eventually, he altered his helmet, modifying it to resemble a grotesque gas mask, not to keep smoke out, but to trap it in. He lived in a haze of synthetic fog, breathing it in like incense, letting it cloud his mind and fill every breath. Smoke is transition, he told his intercessors. It is the breath between lives, between the old self and the true. His unit soon mirrored him, their helms steaming with vapor during battle, their eyes gleaming behind veils of gas. Brother Thek never pushed, never shouted. He leaned close and whispered poison into Saelion's ear. Always calm, always supportive. He counseled patience, spoke of the chapter's future, reassured the captain that he had done what was necessary. The Huntsmen are noble, but nobility becomes suspicion, he warned. Titan is not your brother, he is your judge. When Saelion hesitated, Thek offered logic veiled as empathy. One day, they'll know. The question is, do we wait for them to act, or do we strike first to protect what we've become? Flowers among thorns. Crusade with the Huntsmen. The Night Orchids continued to fight with the Huntsmen chapter, sharing the blood and glory of each crusade like true brothers. To most of the Huntsmen, nothing seemed amiss. The Orchids were more ceremonial perhaps, more flamboyant, but their fury on the battlefield was undimmed, their valor unquestioned. Only 3 began to truly see the cracks. Decimus Cole, ever the quiet champion, noticed how the Night Orchids' younger sergeants carried themselves too reverent toward erupts, too skeptical of imperial authority. Gordos Cyanide, usually a source of dry levity, grew more somber as he catalogued increasingly erratic tech signatures and heretical maintenance protocols in the Orchid's wargear. Radon Bane, ever silent and watchful, took note of it all and especially of Saelion. He watched the captain's face like a battlefield, noting every micro twitch, every subconscious slip in expression, but they said nothing, not yet. Together they struck at cults on Ventress, hunted heretic knights on Naxxramas Prime, and cracked open a demon forge in the void of Oblitus Reach. And now, they prepared for war once more. Shadows between brothers, aboard the stalking moon, as deployment orders flickered across hollow screens and the ships of both chapters made final preparations for their next strike. The trio of Cole, Cyanide, and Radon stood together beneath the observation dome. The next target, Carcassonne, a minor mining world recently seized by a Night Lord's warband. Isolated, vulnerable, but not without fangs. You ever watch Saelion when he talks about Vaerel? Radon asked. Cole folded his arms. I have. There's something off. Something too perfect. Cyanide, his usual smirk replaced with grim focus, added, I've seen their weapons sing to unfamiliar gods, and their engines hum in discord. It's minor, but it's wrong. Cole nodded. And the young ones, their eyes are distant, not cold, just detached. Radon's tone was ice. Next battle, Carcassonne. We stay close to them. Agreed, Cyanide said quietly. Every step. Cole added, if something's wrong, we find it before it finds us. No one mentioned the word corruption, but each of them knew. The flower was blooming, and something terrible was hiding inside.